Hey VIP crafters, happy March! I'm super excited about this project. We're making this beautiful layered butterfly. I am combining our love of butterflies with our love of shadow boxes. This project was really fun to make and it is really easy. Actually, most of the work is on your machine. So let's jump right in. Okay, so I've downloaded my March 2020 VIP cut files, and what I want to do is I want to right click and extract these. If you're on a PC, you're going to see a menu item that says extract all. You could click that. I'm on a PC and it's going to say open with archive utility. And so that is unzipping 101, you guys. So all that does is it just takes this folder right out of this zipped up file right over here. Okay. So let me double click this. I'm just going to show you around real quick. The underscore project should be your top folder if your folders are all alphabetized. And then the rest of these are all of your monthly fun cut files. So underscore project, we're going to go to you can choose from a butterfly design or you can choose the diamond pattern, which also looks really cool. I haven't created an example of it, but basically it is this diamond looking pattern, and it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it just is gonna look really, really cool. Same concept as the butterfly. So here's the butterfly. And this is what it looks like. So the first two layers are actually options. Initially, my first example that I showed you guys, which was this one, has this butterfly right over here. And I kind of later decided that I did not prefer it. And I realized, oh, I should just do a complete cutout so that I could really show off the layers, so that I could show off the intricacies of all of those different levels that I've got going on in the design. So I felt like this second one right here kind of didn't show it off as much. So I really liked the first option, but I also included the second option for those of you that maybe saw it and you were like, oh, I really like this one better. So maybe you like this one better. If so, go for it. But basically, they're meant to be two different variations. So you would either cut out this first one or you would cut out the second one and then all of the remaining ones. Now, just like all of my tutorials, I will show you how to cut this in both Cricut and Silhouette. So if you are a Cricut user, go ahead and watch the next part. And if you are a Silhouette user, go ahead and skip the next part and find the Silhouette Studio section. And if you're familiar with how to cut it, you can skip both sections and get right to the project. Here we are in Cricut Design Space, and we are going to create a new project by clicking this plus sign right over here on the left side. And then I'm going to click upload on this cloud icon right over here, and then I'm going to click upload image. Now I've got my March 2020 files right over here, and then the underscore project, and I am going to cut out the butterfly. And then I've got the butterfly SVG. I'm just going to drag it right over here. And I can get rid of this now. All right, now I'm going to click save. And I'm going to click on the one that I just uploaded, which is the one on the far left. And then I'm going to click insert images. Okay, so I can only see one butterfly here. So I'm going to need to zoom way, way, way out. All right. That's about all I can go. Okay, so I've got several layers here. And what I need to do is first I need to resize it, and then I need to eliminate the one that I'm not cutting out right over here. So I can see that it says 7.625. So I want this to be 7.5 inches because that's how I measured the inside. You want to go ahead and measure the inside of your shadow box. So my shadow box is an 8x8 shadow box, but the very inside, there's like a spacer in there, measures to be 7.5. So measure the inside and see what size you need. But for me, I'm gonna go for 7.5. So I'm right up here in the size area, and next to height, I'm gonna change it to 7.5. Now you wanna make sure that this lock is closed because it's locking the proportions. If it's not locked, go ahead and click it so that it is locked. And then now that I've typed 7.5, I'm gonna hit return on my keyboard, and it just resized that just a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is first I'm actually going to change the color. I just want it to be all one color. So over here in the upper left-hand side, I'm just gonna change this to be gray, just for the sake of having them all to be the same color. I'm actually cutting on white cardstock. All right, let me right click and ungroup these. And basically you want to choose between this version and this version. I personally liked this version as a cutout because it really highlights all of the rest of those, how those looked. So I'm just going to eliminate that by clicking on the red X. All right, now I've got everything else that I need all over here, and I'm just going to click make it. That's all I need to do. So now it's giving me all of the mats that I'm going to need, and basically I'm just going to need to repeat the cuts for each one. So I just need to go through, do a cut, replace the mat, okay, with more paper, and then hit continue. So we've got several pages of this. So everything looks good to me. You can go through if you want. And just make sure that everything looks good. All right, great. So let me hit continue. And now it's going to connect to my machine. All right, so here I am, I'm at my machine. I'm gonna go ahead and open. Whoops, that's not open. Here's the open. And I've got my cutting mat, and it's got my my white cardstock. Now you could use watercolor paper, which is what I used for my first one, and I loved how it looked. But there's a very, very big difference in cut size between watercolor and cardstock. So with the watercolor, I actually had to go to like the poster board setting almost, or even something like up here, somewhere between bonded fabric and poster board. So it really, really was very, very thick compared to the cardstock. So I'm going to go for, this one is cardstock. You could either do cardstock or maybe cardstock plus. Okay, everything looks good. Now I'm going to load it. Okay, and then back here over on my machine, start with the first one, and everything looks good. All right, now that I'm ready, I'm gonna go ahead and click the flashing C, and I will cut this one out. And then once this one's finished, I'll unload it, and then I'll cut the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then when you're finished, you should have a total of 9 layers. So go ahead and skip the next section, and I will meet you in the project creation. Okay, so here we are in Silhouette Studio, and I'm going to open my file. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and then I'm going to head over to my desktop. And I've got my March 2020 VIP cut files. I'm going to go to the underscore project folder, and then I'm going to choose, you can choose between the butterfly or the diamond pattern. I'm going to do the butterfly, and then I'm going to open up the butterfly svg.svg. Now, if you have Silhouette Studio, the basic version, you haven't upgraded, you will want to use the DXF version of this file type. If you are still using this, I would highly recommend that you upgrade. I actually have a video in my beginners course. So let me know if you guys want to watch that. I can post a link, but it's betterlifeblog.com/cutting-basics. You can learn the differences between the DXF and the SVG. But I have the upgraded version. I'm going to use the SVG, and I'm going to click OK. And so it opens up. It is huge, guys, but that's because it's got so many layers. So I'm just going to zoom out. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit more. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I've got all these different layers. The first thing before I do anything else, I really want to make sure that it is the correct size. So I'm going to make sure that this is locked. Do you see how that was unlocked right there? It's a padlock. I want to lock the aspect ratio, make sure that's locked, and then I'm going to change the height to 7.5. Now I've already measured the inside of my shadow box. I have an 8x8 shadow box, but you want to open it up, open up the back and check the inside. And my inside measures 7.5. So, whoops, that's not 7.5. Okay, so this is very strange. It is not resizing it to the size that I want. So I'm going to have to actually manually, I think what it's trying to do, it's trying to size this down to the size of the mat. It's very, very strange. But if you're having this problem like me, I think I'm just going to drag and sort of change it to be just about the size that I need. Little workaround here. I don't know why it's doing that, you guys. Oh, there we go. Okay, I got it to 7.5. I don't know why when I hit 7.5, it automatically jumps to a much, much smaller number. So now I'm gonna just move these off of the mat area. All right, so what I'm going to do is you wanna choose between this first version and this second version. If you, as I said earlier, if you want the cuts to really stand out, use this frame version. So I'm gonna get rid of this one, but if you guys like this one, you should use that instead. All right, I'm gonna delete. All right, so I've got all of my cuts over here. I'm gonna take the first one, I'm gonna move it onto my mat, and then I'm gonna go up to the upper right-hand corner and hit send. And I can see that it is completely outlined in red where it's going to be cutting, so that's perfect. Now I am using cardstock, but before, my first time doing this, I did watercolor, which was really beautiful. So if you're gonna use watercolor, I don't see any watercolor paper. You're gonna need to find a much, much thicker. It was almost like a poster board setting. Let me see if I could find something that is close to the watercolor. I would say it's something like, it might be probably heavy, maybe it might be closer to cardstock heavy. It might be something like that, 105 pound, 122 pound. So you may need to do a test cut to see what works for watercolor. I used my Cricut to cut the watercolor. It was, again, it was pretty thick. I'm trying to think what would be close enough to that. It wouldn't be quite like a leatherette, but it was fairly thick. I would try doing the heavy cardstock, cover stock. All right, but for this, I'm just using cardstock, so I'm gonna use I'll go for the textured heavy, even though it's not textured, but I'd rather cut a little bit deeper than necessary. All right, so I've got everything, looks good. It is ready to go. I'm gonna head over to my machine right now. Okay, so here I am, I'm at my machine and I've got my cardstock. I've got it placed on my mat, my cutting mat. And I'm going to feed this, I'm placing this in between the two blue arrows. And I'm going to load. And then back over on my computer, I'm going to hit the blue send button. Okay, so I've got all of my layers cut out. You should have a total of, I think it's 9 layers. So this is my top layer for this version. Again, remember you have a choice between this version or this version for the top layer. So for this example, I'm using the intricate butterfly. All right, so I'm going to take the top 2 layers of my project and I'm going to put them aside because I don't want those to get any paint on them. Now I've got a spray bottle and I've got just some cheapy Walmart watercolors, nothing fancy, guys. And I'm just spraying them just to get them a little bit hydrated because they are super dry. I've also got a cup of water nearby and I've got some masking tape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape those remaining, I think it's 7 layers together. Okay? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint inside of all of the cutouts. So first thing I'm going to do when I'm using watercolor, I'm just getting it wet. I'm just getting dipping my paintbrush in the water and then just, you know, painting water on it basically. And that just kind of helps the color to spread a little bit better. So I'm going to start with purple and I'm going to go from there. And I'm just winging it. I don't have a specific plan, but basically my plan is I love, you know, rainbow transitions and super colorful butterflies. So I'm going to just go by the colors of the rainbow and just try to have little gradients that are colors next to each other in the rainbow. So you'll see me do like purple to pink and then pink to whatever comes next, orange or whatever, and just kind of gradually getting it through all the different colors of the rainbow. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit in just a sec, but you'll get the idea of kind of how I'm doing it. And the other thing is I'm not worrying about the messing up the front. The front is going to get, you know, color all over it and it's not going to be perfect. But that second layer that I put aside along with the butterfly is going to cover, it's going to cover any imperfections. So that's why we put that aside. So, and the other thing is I'm trying to get every single layer in there. So you really want to don't be afraid to get in there. I think at some point I even, when this was completely painted, I actually removed the tape that I've got here and I went through each layer just to make sure that there were like no white spots, because you really want it to be, that's part of what makes it really pretty, is that there's color on every single layer. So I'm just showing you close up there what it looks like. And yeah, you can see that I'm really trying my best to get a little bit of color on every single layer and inside of every single space there. So now I'm just going back with some water and I'm just trying to do a little bit better job of blending everything because I'm completely finished with all the colors. So I'm just kind of pulling some of the paint out and just kind of making sure that not only are the colors blended, but that also the first layer has paint in all the areas where it's going to be seen. So, okay, now that these are dry, they are a little bit wrinkly. So I did something this is totally optional, and maybe you'll want to use parchment paper, but I just used my Easy Press on a very low setting, like 250. Just did each page just really quickly for a couple seconds just to flatten it out. Okay, so now you're going to want to take your second to top layer. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to add the spacers in between. But doesn't that look pretty? You don't even really need to add the spacers. I think it looks pretty cool just like this. So I would say the spacers are kind of optional. But the spacers that I used was just basic foam tape. This is double-sided adhesive foam tape. And then all I did was just cut pieces and just place them in between each layer. Now, I think my foam tape must have been kind of old or something, because you're going to see that I end up having a lot of trouble just getting the adhesive backing. And I think at some point I ended up just using glue to stick everything together. But it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. And it still looked pretty awesome in the end. But yeah, all I did was just cut off little pieces of this foam tape, put them in between each layer. Now for the top layer, it's up to you how you want to affix this to the top. I am using a foam layer for this version, but in another version that I did, I didn't use any foam at all. I just placed it right on top. So it's up to you. If you want to give it a little bit more height, that's totally fine. And if you want to bend the wings, you can totally do that as well. Again, I really preferred my next version just because I felt like this, although it looks really cool, it is hard to see. It's hard to see all the different layers past that first layer. It's like the first layer is like taking up the entire, all the attention. So I don't know. I think it still looks pretty cool. I just preferred the second way better. So again, it's totally up to you. Anyways, I'm getting my light box. I've opened it up. I've opened up the back, and I'm just placing this inside. And it was really hard for me to photograph this with the glass. So all of the pictures that you see are actually without the glass. But yeah, I think it looks pretty cool, even with that top layer that I ended up replacing. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. This was a pretty easy project to do. Yeah, here's a version of this without the glass. Doesn't that look cute? And then here's the version with the white cut out instead. And then here's a version with the gray cutout. So you guys just decide what you want to do, how you want to do it, and I can't wait to see what you guys make.
So don't forget to post those in the group, but also I want you to go to Instagram and use the hashtag VIP Crafters Club. And then that way those can get posted into our inspiration gallery, and you'll get entered for a chance to win an Amazon gift card.